Hi, I'm Sharon. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Let's talk about sight reading. I think it's a topic that none of us, or very few of us, particularly relish the prospect of. And so over the years I've developed a few hints and tips and techniques that help me to get through when I need to sight read a piece of music, and actually it sort of decodifies just an abstract collection of blobs that we've just got to keep reading and trudging our way through. And so if you can just adopt these techniques, actually it demystifies and suddenly it becomes a lot easier. I think the first thing to think about is that you do need to practice it. Now, that sounds like an impossible situation because you can't practice it because it's sight reading. Yes, however, you can practice the principle. If you keep on, just try new bits of music, just pick something up and have a go for a few bars. It really does just get easier over time. I think the problem often is that we're digging away at our pieces and we're dissecting and working on whatever it is we're working on, usually for an exam. And then we master that piece after weeks and weeks or months and months. And then we start a new piece and we never actually just give ourselves the chance to just glance through a piece of music and have a go. And so just keep on giving yourself little sight reading exercises. It can even be nice things that you want to play, but just pick them up, have a go, have done with it. So practice the technique in principle rather than getting a tunnel vision all the time and never really looking at new music. However, outside of that, here are my specific techniques for sight reading. Now I'm going to use some examples from the ABRSM piano syllabus that I'll show you little clips of as I'm talking. And so if you don't play piano, it doesn't matter, the principle remains. So there's treble and bass clef, so it should cover most basses. If you play an instrument that's outside of those clefs, it doesn't matter, the principle still remains. So let's think about how we can get through these pieces. Ideally, your music theory would be at about the same stage as your standard of playing, and that way you're more informed and you can understand what it is you're playing. If that isn't necessarily the case, it doesn't matter. It's just another one of those tools that you can use to help. So the first thing you do is you just look at it. So just glance through, and all of these things that I'm going to say actually take longer to say than they do to actually implement. So, and again, if you keep practicing, you get quicker and quicker at picking up these little things. So of course, the first thing you'd look at is your time signature, and just tap your toe inside your shoe. We don't want great clunking steps as you're trying to do a performance, but just subtly tap your toe inside your shoe to establish the pulse. So you've got a sense of tempo. And then just have a little read through the general outline of the melody. So you've got a vague idea, just hum through in your mind. So you've got a sense of where the piece is going. To do that, you would then, whilst you're doing that, you can then discover things like what key is the piece in. Have an idea of what tonality you're playing in, because that way you've got an idea of some things that you can expect to see all the time. So for example, for this grade 1 piece here, we're in the key of C major. We've got a key signature of nothing, and there's no accidentals, and then the other big clue is we've got lots of notes C at the end as home. So we know that we're in this key of C major. So already we've got an idea we're going to be based, keep coming back to note C. Now, if you know your scales and arpeggios, you also know that you're going to have lots of arpeggio shapes of C major arpeggio, or the chord of C in its different positions. And then you're also going to have little scale passages as well that you can look out for. And if you've done your scales and you've done your arpeggios, those shapes are already in your fingers. Other things that you can look for are little repeated patterns and sequences where they'll play an arpeggio, move it up or down the instrument, or they'll extend the range of that just by a note, or shrink it by a little bit in pitch. And a simple skimming of the music will also go a long way to just getting you through. If the music is going from line to line to line, then we know that we're skipping. If it goes line space line, we know that we're going next door notes in step. So you can just skim through. Or of course, if it goes space to space, then you're going to be hopping over the in-between note there. Of course, there are times when you're going to have to read the notes, but that's just going to be the odd note. So let's have a look in more detail at this grade 1 piano piece. So the first bar, we can see we're in C major, and the first bar is the last 3 notes of the scale of C major. And also it's based around your C chord. We've got the C, the E and the C with just an in-between note as well. And then in your left hand, the next bar, again we have the chord or the arpeggio of C major. We're going from the G to the E. And then we have some next door notes going up in step, E, F, G. So we can see already we've got skip, step, step. And then the final bar, we're just home on home note, tonic C. And so if you just tap your way through, I think the important thing as well here is don't rush your long notes. Don't rush. I think sometimes a sense of stress and panic makes you go so much quicker. Take your time and get those long notes to give you a bit of pause to look ahead and see what's coming up. Let's look at that principle and in a little bit more detail now at the grade 3 piece. So looking through this piece of music, we're in 3 beats per bar, so we can think 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3. We've got a sense of where the rhythm's going, just have a little hum through where you think the melody's going vaguely. And then because we're in D minor, you're going to guess that there's going to be lots of D minor arpeggio shapes. And also, if you think that's your home chord, your tonic arpeggio, we're also going to have lots of A shapes, that's called 5. However, if you're not sure of that, that doesn't matter. You don't need to know to expect that as such. It's just another little clue to help you. So let's look at this grade 3 piece. We're in D minor, 3 beats per bar. Well, your first bar is made up entirely of D minor arpeggio shapes. The next bar, the right hand arpeggio shape is moved down a step. So we're doing exactly the same shape, but down a step. Incidentally, that's an A major arpeggio with a 7th added. That's your chord 5 with a bluesy 7th added. However, if you weren't sure of that, you could just also see the arpeggio shape's gone down a step. And you can also think line to line to line, we're just skipping over, missing, like leapfrogging over the in-between notes. The third bar, hey presto, we're right back to a D minor arpeggio shape. There's just a fill-in note in the left hand, and you can see it goes line, space, line. So we can just fill in the gaps. We've hardly even read the notes. The next bar does require a little bit more thought, but in your right hand you can see you've gone up in step from the previous bar, and then you're just leapfrogging over line to line. Your left hand is going space to space, so you're just skipping over again. So just thinking line, space, or skips and so on. Notice now the next to the last bar is very similar to the second bar. It's using exactly those same harmony shapes, and also you can think, well, we've got to go in step and then a little skip up to the E at the end. So next door notes and then leapfrog over, miss a note. And then your last chord is a D minor chord, home, that's it, job done. So you do have to figure out your starting position, your hand position, or what your notes are. But once you've kind of got that starting point, a lot of the time you can just repeat patterns through or look in skips and steps and just skim read the notes. Let's just look at a couple more advanced options. So for example, we have a grade 5 piano piece. Of course it's going to get trickier now. And so just glancing through this, just let's look at the first line of this. So looking at our key signature, we're in F sharp minor, and we can confirm that by the fact that our first chord shape is an F sharp minor triad, and then we're confirmed by, you know, some little E sharps and things, and then that the title, sadly, the sort of mood indicator, sort of helps us to think, yeah, it's going to be a minor key. So if some things sound a little bit strange, we're ready for it. And so you won't just stop and think, oh no, I've played a wrong note. You're ready for that minor lilt and some perhaps awkward intervals depending which part of the scale you're going to be using. And so bar 1 is basically F sharp minor arpeggio and chord shapes. So if you've done your arpeggios, that should be under your fingers really. Now the next bar needs a little bit of reading. However, you can see that in the left hand we've got next door notes together making a bit of a crunch, so don't be surprised when you see right next door notes we're going to have a bit of dissonance. And the right hand we can figure out by just moving up and down in steps, so up a step and then back down in steps. Bar 3 is right back to an F sharp minor arpeggio and chord shape with one extra note in the left hand, but we can see it just goes up a step to the B. And then your underneath part goes up a step, taking you back to the next bar with another F sharp minor chord and steps again. Next to the last bar on that line, we've just got an E major chord that then goes down in steps, and then the steps continue in your left hand with that semiquaver rhythm. So your arpeggio shapes should get you through the vast majority of that. And so you can see that we're just going to keep guessing these shapes, as it were, and just keep reading. The principles remain. No matter what instrument, no matter what the difficulty, the principles are always the same. Implementing them, of course, gets trickier, but if you just keep practicing, then it does definitely get easier. It becomes something that's not really necessarily something you need to be absolutely terrified of. You may not ever learn to completely love it. I think in general, the other things I would say are just keep going, because if you keep stopping and going back and sorting it out and trying again, that reruns are practice, not sight reading, and you're not being asked to practice this little piece. Very often in an exam they'll give you a little look, and if you've got 30 seconds to have a little trial of a few bars, skim through and just try the really tricky bars that look less obvious. If you've got lots of accidentals going on, don't start at the beginning, because especially in the later grades you certainly haven't got time to play it all. In the earlier grades you might just get a quick run through if the examiner's being generous and giving you the 30 seconds generously. However, it's not good practice, and if you keep rerunning and practicing and starting and stopping, not only are you missing the point of the exercise, but also you're making it worse, because, okay, if you get a wrong note, so what? These things happen, it's perhaps inevitable to begin with. But if you get a wrong note and then stop and go back and try again, you've not only got the note wrong, you've got the timing wrong as well. And so you've kind of been counterproductive. And I think as well, you start getting really stressed then, because, oh no, I've gone wrong, I'll go back and try it again. And, oh no, that's not quite right, I'll just try it again. And you start second guessing everything. Whereas if you just do an in time, confident, controlled attempt, even with some mistakes, you will get better marks, but more than that, you will get a better result of your playing, your performance of that one-off practice of sight reading will be much more musical, really. And so don't be tempted to keep rerunning, but just whatever happens, keep your toe tapping inside your shoe, keep in control of what your tempo is, and just keep going. Let it slide through as a really calm and confident performance, even if there is a wrong note. I do hope those tips are helpful to you. Thanks for watching. Bye.